Decisions, Dioras, decisions, 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 decisions. Wienermobile. Disclaimer. Welcome back to the Four Horsemen. Turkey's done, let's have some fun. This is Tom from Spork Syndicate, together with Paul from Diecast Graveyard, Andrew from Maple Leaf Customs, and Skip from Crossroad Diecast Speed Shop. We are the Four Horsemen. This month's build theme is RV, and we welcome Godzuka Dan as our guest horseman. When I picked this theme last year, I began setting aside castings as November approached, and now I've got an entire campground of options. So I've got to eliminate some. Well, several. My RV research took me in a lot of directions. At first, I was drawn to the beautifully ugly campers from the 1930s to 70s. Then there's the converted buses. Like our Flyers feature vehicle from real life. School or commuter buses customized or mashed up with other vehicles to create the ultimate DIY home on wheels. The Prepper set have their tactical, rugged vehicles, which could drive anywhere, maybe even on Mars. The modern aesthetic can be vintage or science fiction in appearance, or just plain yacht big, which was tough to differentiate from the conceptual or AI manifested land yachts that look right out of a science fiction film or game. These were wild, but there's just no way they'd fit under an overpass. There's always Volkswagen vans, a culture unto itself. Just get in and go. Pick up a hitchhiker or two to help with gas money, and follow the sun. So many looks to decide. So I consulted my son Jackson, and he chose this one. A Volkswagen bus stretched into a 6-wheeled limousine with a loft comprised of another bus roof and parts of 2 VW Beetles. So out went the ugly beauties, tactical all-terrainers, attempts at one of those AI monstrosities, and even the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. Until all that was left were my V-dubs. I approached things like an assembly line. At first, I had more than the 5 castings I settled on, so a lot more are queued up for future projects. There was no occupancy inside my paint stripper jar, so I had to bring in an auxiliary pot and strip the last 2 buses in the open air. That's a big old pile of castings back from the paint stripper. The castings got pampered. Steel wool cleanup, sandpaper, filing off any unwanted seams or flashing. Now, let's cut them to pieces. I taped off all the places I planned to cut with my jewelry saw. A couple of ways to help your saw blades last longer are to coat and recoat them in beeswax and to let the blade do all the work. Don't force things. Well, maybe it was just the blade's time. A first mock-up shows there's a lot more work ahead. One thing I like about the VW culture is the mix of old and new parts. So many I've seen have all the old trappings along with the earned rust and some shiny rims or a tuned engine. This RV will be no different. Although the motor won't be seen, there will be a pair of large exhaust pipes and 6 pretty silver rims. I'm glad I dry fit things throughout. The upper roof had to be narrowed. Remember, kids, when cutting, especially with an electric cutter like a rotary tool, always use a vise and not your fingers. Glue and JB Weld help narrow the roof together. I realized that I won't be able to add the decal-laden windows I planned if I just slapped the top floor onto the roof of the van below, so I had to cut out a hole. Only thing holding this together is gravity. At this point, I'm using JB Weld as a combination of glue and Bondo to move the process along. The spines needed strengthening. On the bottom, I used strips of tin, thick styrene plastic, and bread clips. On the top, more JB Weld, along with a thin strip of styrene to mate the 3 vehicles that comprised the roof. Now that things weren't bending, it was time to eliminate the seams. That's where some JB steel stick reinforced putty came into play. We're getting there. You'll see it later, but I managed to get this six-wheeler to not only roll, but roll straight, something I don't always pull off. Even though unseen, the camper has a wood floor. I fill the gap toward the back with styrene. I don't worry about windows because that's where the master bedroom will be, so privacy matters. Another victory. The extended base and body aren't fighting each other. Granted, I had to do a little filing on the rear license plate fitting to make things even, but this thing's really coming together. But there's a few more rounds of bodywork to go. I made a lot of decals for this build, more than I needed, so some more VW builds will just have to happen in the future. I begin with the windows while the paint dries on the casting. Although not as high res as I had hoped, there's a bunch of little logos and thoughts, each with a story behind them, plus some Easter eggs. There's US and Canadian flags, lots and lots of Volkswagen-inspired logos, clubs, and cultural touchpoints. I even managed to get a few channel logos in there. Not just mine, Spork Syndicate, but my fellow horsemen, Diecast Graveyard, Maple Leaf Customs, Crossroad Diecast Speed Shop, and even our Guest Horseman, Zukadan, are featured prominently. And I even snuck a logo for Ron at Somo Diecast, our new horseman for 2026 in there. Time to unwrap the wheels, which have been encased in Teflon tape for about a week to avoid getting any paint on them. Those silver rims are in perfect opposition to the worn, decal-covered surface of the body. Really captures what I was going for. Time to roll out the lime green carpet.
You gotta be kidding me.
This is a happy accident. I was able to repurpose some items and create a new camera mount when my regular one snapped. Thanks again to Zukadan for being our guest horseman this month. Our December theme is Santa, and we welcome none other than Santa Slow Dog as our guest horseman. Four Horsemen diecast builds are open to all. You don't need a YouTube channel or even a social media presence to participate. All you need to do is join in. Customize a diecast car to the theme of our community build. But don't stop there. We want to celebrate your work and include it in our monthly recap videos. To have your build recognized, email an in-focus, high-res glamour shot on a white or light background to fourhorsemendiecast@gmail.com on the due date of the build, and we will include it in the recap video. But if you do have social media, be sure to use the hashtag #4HorsemenDiecast so others can see your work. I hope you had fun watching these 5 castings Volkswagen Voltron their way into one hot-rodded RV. Time for me to build Santa's rocket-powered sleigh for next month. For the Four Horsemen, this is Tom. See you again real soon.